From the Sky News Centre, this is Paul Murray Live.
G'day, good evening, happy Sunday. Sorry for a slightly strained voice. What a very social weekend I had. One of my dear and most beautiful friends, former executive producer of this program, Josh, had his 30th. Dear and personal friend, presenter here on Sky News, Sharry Markson, had her 40th. Dear friend of mine in Brisbane, Liz, well, she had her birthday party as well. Very social weekend. So apologies for the voice, but we've got plenty to get to. But I just wanted you to think about what you did this weekend, about how social it was. Did you have people over? Did you go somewhere else? Did you do something as social as I did? Well, guess what? The reality for an awful lot of people is they don't do it. Just because simply it is too expensive. It still remains the number one issue, cost of living, that we talk about almost every night, because there are people amongst us who are truly suffering, and the government pretends to have a solution when all they are doing is distracting from the things they could do. Now, Jane Hume and her cost of living inquiry has been travelling the country and doing excellent work bringing out stories of how people are hurting. Some of those people give evidence, other people just write letters or give what's called a written submission to those inquiries. And I've got to say, well done to the ABC, or at least the reporters here who are relentlessly going through those documents, because they're making it the same story that we have been talking about for the best part of 2 years. Let's start with a woman living in regional Australia and why she doesn't leave her house. Lindy Kay used to enjoy a meal at the bowling club once a week. Would often go to meet up with girlfriends in town for morning tea. Nowadays, the 74-year-old has more or less stopped going out altogether. Now, anyone who knows how much it is to get lunch at a bolo or coffee with your friends in regional Australia, it's not that expensive. It still celebrates the place of the $5 steak and the cheaper middies than everywhere else, but still. Due to the cost of living pressures, she only leaves her house for essentials and goes on long stretches of time without social interactions. Quote, I don't go to the movies, I don't go out for dinner, I don't go to the pub. I used to love going out. I've had to get used to the isolation. Now, as we've talked about before, now this doesn't matter whether you're in the city and your partner has passed away, whether you are in the suburbs and you've always lived alone, whether you live in regional Australia and, again, all of those things happen, or in this case, you don't have enough money to go into town, the consequences of social isolation become huge. There are parts of the world, including the UK, that have ministries for loneliness because of what it does to people, what it does to our fellow family members. Now, for obvious reasons, all of us are reminded, even after big social occasions like mine this weekend or whatever you did this weekend, is that you've always got to reach out to the people who you know are living by themselves. Not just because they are living by themselves, but because it's our job to remind everyone we know how much we love them. Because when you spend more time by yourself, more time in your own thoughts, then things can turn very nasty very quickly. Now, one of the key questions that keeps coming up in the people who've been writing to this committee of politicians to tell them about their cost of living situations relentlessly is the issue that I am obsessed with, which is the cost of petrol and the role in which the federal government is in the tax in the cost of petrol. Remember, when this government came to power, it was 23 cents a litre, and now they've whacked it up to 49 cents a litre. Despite the fact that they can control the tax that goes into the car via petrol, that is the difference between some people being able to travel at all to do anything social. These are the things the government could do, but they still continuously, relentlessly say, perhaps because it's an idea we talk about on this program, forgive me for being not quite modest, but maybe that's why they're not doing it. Well, I don't care if they hate where the idea is coming from. The idea remains central. It's not going to change inflation. People don't go and buy extra fuel. They still drive as far as they drive, but a slightly cheaper amount of petrol would mean that some people who are right on the edge will be able to do things like the lady in regional Australia, to be able to maybe have a little bit of extra money to put into the car to be able to go and see a friend for a cup of tea once a week. Huge differences to people's lives. It doesn't really matter for the people at the front end of the plane whose life's always really busy and their phone's always going on and, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's been 3 months since I returned your text. But people deserve social interaction. One of the ways they can do it is if this government cuts petrol tax. Further examples here, that many of the many Senate committee submissions cited petrol costs as the reason for cutting back on activities. One respondent even admitted to taking days off work because they couldn't afford to run their car. So they're not working from home like a federal or state government bureaucrat. These are people who, because they don't have enough money to put fuel in the car, they don't go and earn more money by going to work. Many say they can only travel if it's necessary and are sacrificing visiting loved ones. Back to our first situation. People have gone years without seeing their family. So forgive me if I say it again, but I do not believe the Prime Minister, his champions in the media or the people who prop him up when they say they are doing everything they can on cost of living. This is what they tell you.
We work each and every day to do more. That's the focus of the government.
Then cut petrol tax. Do it tomorrow. Give people the ability to save $1 here or there so they can leave their house and see their family and friends. Yes, it is that dire for some people. But the Prime Minister, despite the written evidence, the human evidence that we show you, and the common sense that should be there in their heart, completely deaf to it. Drop the damn tax. The cars Australians like to buy at the moment, big ones, SUVs, utes. They love them for a whole bunch of reasons. For our family, it's so we can take all the stuff and the kids to all the different activities that they want to do. For people with utes, it's literally a tool when it comes to work. It's the ability to move things around. They are big, they are powerful, and they're increasingly comfortable. They're like the utes that your dad used to drive a while ago. These are now big, powerful, fun family cars that you can also take to a building site if you want to. But despite the fact that the market is deciding that this is what people want to own, we know what the government wants you to own, because they can say they're doing something about a certain percentage of 1% of global carbon emissions. And that, of course, is a conversation about electric vehicles. Now, yes, they do not need petrol, but they do need electricity, and currently the electricity's got a fair amount of coal in it, let alone the environmental impacts of actually building or running the things. But that's what they want you to do. Places like the ACT are turning around and saying by the mid-2030s you won't be able to buy anything but an electric car, and there are conversations happening right now at the state government level that potentially certain vehicles may not be able to register if they're longer than X years old. Will it be 30 years? Will it be 20 years? Will it be 15, 10, 5? At some point in time, you might be able to buy a petrol vehicle to show off at a car festival, but you won't be able to drive it around at some point into the future as people believe this is the line in the sand that we need to draw. But as you know, this government, on the very day that they were increasing petrol taxes to 49 cents in a dollar, that produced everything that I just talked about there, including the lady who's sitting there in regional Australia, Lindy, who can't leave the house because she doesn't have enough money for petrol. These people were turning around and saying, despite the fact they were making it bad or harder for everyone in the country who had petrol in their cars, that the promise was that if you buy a new car in the next couple of years and if you stand on one leg and bark like a dog, you'll eventually save this much money a year because of the reduction in petrol you'll be buying.
We know that by 2028 this will save average consumers on each vehicle each year over $1,000.
Now, again, you do not believe what these people say, you watch what they do. What they do right now is increase petrol taxes. What they do right now is introduce rules that will make it too expensive to buy the cars that you want to buy, while artificially cheapening the car you don't want to buy. Now again, as a petrol head, and I bleed red and I love all things brum brum, but I do understand the power of the electric vehicle. At some point in my life I'll end up owning one. I do understand their acceleration power. I do understand how cool some of them look, all the rest of it. But the reality is that until the charging infrastructure's in place, I don't want to stand around when I'm driving from one place to another for 25, 30 or an hour waiting for it to go from 5% to 25%. It's frustrating enough when it's your iPhone and you can leave the room and watch the telly, let alone actually just standing out in a car park somewhere, rain, hail or shine. But guess what? The $1,000 promise has now magically improved Because you see, the politics is working against the government because the people who are buying larger cars, particularly in the suburbs and further out, well, they're starting to get the Harry hits about this particular policy because they know what's coming. So I read today in the Channel 9 newspapers that the $1,000 saving, which will not be happening, but still, it's like the $275 power saving. Oh, well, there was a war, but there was a war when you made the announcement. It's gone longer. Doesn't really matter. Like the $275 on your power bills, well, $1,000 on your petrol is now apparently magically $1,800 savings on your petrol. New South Wales and Victorian motorists in the outer suburbs and regional areas could save as much as $1,800 a year under the government's plan to cap motor vehicle emissions for new cars. Who's done the analysis? Bowen. So Bowen, who made up the number of 1,000, him and his people, have now made up a number of 1,800. Because apparently you are stupid and you will fall for it. Because the people of Dunkley said, thanks for the cost of living cut of $14 a week on tax cuts that haven't turned up and won't until July. The government will spend $40 million on the marketing of the tax cuts that you don't have to apply for. They'll just turn up anyway, but are not big enough to change anyone's life. The same government that increased petrol taxes on every car that's on the road right now, who could cut it tomorrow but won't, are now telling you, oh, stick with us, Mr Miyagi style, we'll just invent a solution. And we've gone from $1,000 to $1,800 because you're that stupid, you'll believe it. Casanova said this, transport and fuel costs are a big portion of the average household budget. Thanks, Scoop! Why don't you go down the hall and tell the Treasurer and tell the Prime Minister to cut petrol tax? We can and should give households more choice to be able to bring those costs down. Yes, you should cut petrol tax. And that's exactly what the efficiency standards do. They don't really come into effect until July the 1st, and then, of course, they don't really come into effect until 2028, when this mob's going for its third term in office. And if you buy the right car at the right time and the moon's in the right place, then you will magically save $1,000. Or no, $1,800. Whereas right now, people don't go to work. They're writing to the freaking Senate. Do you think anyone wants to sit down and write to the Senate? But they're writing letters to the Senate saying, I'm giving up days of work because I don't have enough petrol in the car, so I have to ration the days. You are choosing to make petrol too expensive right now. You could get rid of it completely. But go back to where you were when you came to government. 23 cents in the dollar, not 49. And if you have a look at the current petrol prices, I think some people might say thank you. Because right now, today, unleaded 91, and I know there are some people who go E10 and some people who go 98, but the bulk of cars, general good old-fashioned unleaded, basically $2.30 up and down the east coast of Australia. Oh, but you'll magically save $1,800 if you trust me. Well, guess what, Chris? I don't. I don't trust you. I don't trust the people working for you. I don't trust your bosses, because you have an option right in front of you today to be able to show that you are willing to save people money. But what you are trying to do is to change the cars that we drive because it makes you feel better. It makes the lobby groups that demand it feel better, and you get to go to international conferences or, like you've said before, host UN climate conferences here and say, Australia is magnificent because we've changed the number of electric vehicles from this to this. Again, when they charge faster and the opportunity to charge them more frequently, and they are cheaper, yes, Australians will make a choice. But the reason they are driving what they are driving right now, I'll give you the tip, mate, is because they're the cars that work for their family or are needed for their work. And I know that a lifelong politician like yourself doesn't understand what the word work means, but this could be people with an ABN who need to get up earlier than you, who go to bed later than you, who didn't get a pay rise that's their highest in 10 years like you, and they don't believe you. 1,000 to 1,800. What garbage. Cut petrol tax. And you'll do something for cost of living right now. Another folly of this mob is that they used to pretend that if you had more than one job in order to make ends meet, then it was a sign of how bad the economy was. In fact, this was their bleatings from opposition.
So many people are doing it just so tough. 500,000 Australians are working 3 or more jobs.
But guess what? New data which has come out from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, that far right-wing think tank, the producers of Paul Murray Live, the far right-wing think tank. And it has shown us the number of people who have multiple jobs in the country. And that number has gone from 862,000 in the March quarter, before they came to government, to now 970,000. 1 million people who have more than one job in order to make ends meet. Because apparently the party that promised to do something about cost of living did so little about cost of living that more people need another job to be able to pay for the petrol in their car, to pay for the power in their house, all of which that was magically going to fall because we're in this new green direction. But of course, to get there, when it comes to power, it costs, as according to the CSIRO, multiple other reports, I'm more than happy to show my homework to Media Watch or anyone else who'd like to complain, the best part of $1 trillion to change our network from what has been reliable to the one that'll make them all feel better. And then maybe when it's up and running and completely paid off, and you're able to knock 3 times on a magic door, roll the dice and get exactly the right amount of numbers, hop on your left foot 3 times, hop on your right foot 4 times, sing a secret song, and then yes, technically maybe it'll be slightly cheaper, but the whole point of the cost of transition was the giant leap to actually get to that future. And that future is costing us more money. But for the people whose flights, accommodation, cars, you name it, are paid for by you and me, they don't care. The people who make money out of this transition, they don't care. The people who talk about it full-time on TV or radio, who are all paid pretty well, they don't care because their life circumstances, it's a little bit tougher to go to Saint-Tropez this year. Whereas people are sitting in their house. People are working more than one job at a higher number than ever before. In fact, have a look at the overtime here. Just again, in case you want to run off to the ghost and say, he's making things up, misinformation. Have a look at how many people, left to right, have got second jobs. Oh, but it's about population growth, Paul. No, it's growing faster than population growth. And the second job is not just 1 or 2 hours on the side. Again, have a look here. It's the best part of an extra 10 hours, a full working day, that everyone is working in terms of their second job in order to pay for everything that is more expensive, but the government constantly turns around and tells you, this is not the cost of living crisis you think it is. Sorry, Master Albo, Grand Jedi Chalmers, it's not. The things that are still above average when it comes to inflation is all the basics. Yes, there are some things that have dropped a little bit back from where they were before. But the reason we talk about it every night is because this stuff scares people. It scares them more than whether there will or won't be a nuclear reactor that Peter Dutton might put near their house. Seriously. This is the stuff that actually matters to people. And I get it. You're going to turn around and say, whatever, mate, we won Dunkley. And they drive utes. Whatever, mate, we won Dunkley. We're giving them $14 a week. And even if you win the next election and you improve the number of seats by 25, and even if you reduce the Liberal Party to 4 blokes and there's 100 teals, this all still matters. And the fact that you only view it through the pendulum of does it work for us or does it work against us politically means that you're only interested, the whole machine is only interested in holding on to power, not actually helping people. God forbid you did that as well as stayed in power. Now, I'm sorry to bring up Sam Kerr again, because I know you've heard too much about this over the past couple of weeks, but you know the story by now. She'll go before a court in the next few weeks. All about apparently calling a police officer in the UK a stupid white bastard. Now, should she be going to court before? No. There's no one who thinks this is seriously an offence that is worthy of her being criminally sanctioned. But there is a fascinating little example here of watching the lefties police themselves. You see, if you had the attitude that being a professional sports person means you've got to carry yourself in a slightly different manner, yes, unfairly, you've got to sit up a bit straighter, walk a bit of a straighter line, and in exchange we'll pay you an awful lot of money for this wonderful skill that you have and that you've worked on, but in return you'll be able to make an awful lot more money out of endorsements and the system stays the way it is. But just as it has been for professional cricket players, professional rugby league players, professional AFL players, that when controversy comes your way, people turn around and they, for some reason, go judge and jury, and they, like a Roman emperor, thumbs up or thumbs down the said indiscretion, and then whatever punishment is coming your way comes your way. And there's multiple ways you can sanction someone for what they do in their private life. Now, I don't think everything's a hanging offence, not everything's a sacking offence. Sometimes things are, come on mate, don't do it again. Some things are, please say sorry. Some things are, do a bit of charity work because it shows that you've learnt a lesson. Not just because we're getting you out of it. Sometimes it's lose the captaincy. Sometimes it's sit out a couple of weeks. There are lots of options here. But because the Matildas are untouchable, and I love the Matildas, how many times do I have to tell you about the posters on my little girl's wall? I love how successful they've been. I love that people will turn up to a friendly and sell out a stadium. No problem with it. But in the same way that when you criticise an individual rugby league player, or an individual AFL player, or an individual cricket player, you're not slamming the whole game. You're not saying anyone who supports them is evil. You're occasionally allowed to have a view that action-reaction is the way that things work. What the reaction is, of course it shouldn't be go to court. But when you don't tell your bosses that you were kind of in trouble with the police for 6 weeks, maybe some people might have an opinion. Perfect example of that is Craig Foster. Now, Craig Foster is well known to many people who've got access to a television because he's on many channels, many times, talking about lots of things. And one of the reasons why he was even nominated for Australian of the Year was because he was able to convince streets and councils that they had to put up signs underneath the name of the street that says hashtag racism not welcome. Now, people may not know what a hashtag is even now, let alone in 5, 10, 15 years, when my grandkids are asking my kids, what's a hashtag? Oh, it was this thing, there was Twitter, I don't know. But still, these are permanent monuments to the nobility of Craig Foster. And I don't know Craig personally, but he seems like a nice enough guy, and as always, even when we disagree with people, we do not question their humanity, we do not question how much they love their family or mates or anything like that. Well, as you know, he believed that action equals reaction. As you know, a few days ago, he actually came out and said, oh, you know what? When you're the Australian soccer captain, probably you shouldn't be telling police officers that they're stupid white bastards or anything other than sir or ma'am.
So it has, I think, surprised and saddened and shocked not just football fans, not just Matildas fans, of which is, you know, the vast majority of Australia, but I'd say all Australians, because Sam is one of our most loved national and public figures. And therefore, we're all trying to process it and work out how to deal with it.
How could he? How could he say such a awful and racist, sexist thing? Action, reaction. That's all he said. And he suggested that maybe one of the reactions to the action could be that she's not the captain for a little while.
So you reckon this is likely, and a likely outcome? I mean, it's unlikely she'll play, obviously, we know, with her ACL injury, so maybe she is stripped of the captaincy then?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think the game should definitely consider it.
Okay.
You know, I can't say whether I'd do it right now, but I would certainly consider it.
Consider it?
Now President of the United States, President Obama, Mr. Trump for the moment.
Consider! How dare you! Well, the internet reacted like that. And Craig is, you know, obviously, if he's putting up road signs with hashtags on it, he's kind of aware of what the internet's about. And if the internet says, sir, you are on the wrong track he is. So he's now apologised. Don't read that. It's like 2 pages. It's a long, long, long thing. Like many, I mistakenly thought that comments that referenced any colour were discriminatory. This is the guy who's about stopping racism, who thinks if you call someone insert colour before bastard, there's a racial element to the comments. That these things were discriminatory, demeaning, hostile, and were a form of racism. I apologise to Sam for this mistake. Why did he change his mind? Well, not just because the internet went screamy, screamy, screamy. You're going to lose the woke captaincy if you keep behaving like this. But it's because the experts who get to mark their own homework, and then, of course, social media turns to the experts, that being university people, to define what is and isn't true, which, of course, the government wants to do, remember, by censoring the internet, and this editorial would be misinformation. According to The Conversation, which is often repeats a lot of stuff the ABC has, but it's got a lot of articles from academics, Sam Kerr's alleged comments may have a racial element, but they're not racist. So you see, put simply, as we told you last week, the reason she gets a pass is because you can't be racist to white people. Here's some examples of people who have said this publicly. SBS is calling someone white a racist slur. Here's what the experts say. Race was invented in order to put black people during the slave trade and colonisation at the bottom of a hierarchy in order to justify exploitation. So because it was white people who did that, it is impossible for it to be racism, because racism is all about white people on top and everything else not. Another professor. We still live in a society that, at least in the eyes of the law, that normal is white and male. While that is the case, I don't think someone who's white and male in particular can claim that the law is not playing in their favour. And just to put the cherry on top here as to why Craig decided to say sorry, because all the experts came out and said that you basically can't be racist to white people. Let's be very clear. Here's the question that was asked on a website called Indigenous X, and all of the academia in there. Is it possible to be racist to white people? Answer, no. Literally, it's actually in the headline. No. Collectively, only white people as a group benefit from racism within Australia and other white-dominated countries. Within the current systems of power that we exist in, white people are not the victims of racism. Individual beliefs and actions cannot be viewed or considered without an awareness of the power imbalance. No disrespect, she's a millionaire playing professional soccer in England. She's got the power over the citizenry, even the police. But no. Let's get back to what they say. In ignorance of the disparate levels of outcomes and privileges that racism affords and denies. In this light, the Anglo-Indian person calling a white police officer a stupid white bastard cannot be seen in the same light as a white person using a racialised insult against an Indigenous person or a person of colour. Also, in a situation like this, my first comment is that a racist... my reading's terrible tonight. My first thought is not, is that a racist comment? It's what is inciting the incident? So not only are you let off for the action, and there definitely should be no reaction, it's what prompted the action that matters more. The bloke who puts up signs saying racism isn't welcome here turns around and says, action, reaction, consider. Get back in line. He does, he apologises. Seriously. More in a sec here. Got plenty to, not fight, debate. We debate here, right? There's actually no sooks, no lefties, so yeah, definitely. We'll have fun tonight. Looking forward to it. James Ashby running for One Nation in the seat of Keppel in Queensland. And fingers crossed she starts running for something soon. The former Liberal MP and our dear friend Nicole Flynn, Andrew Bogut as well. Just getting started. And I think you can tell it's been a good weekend. No sooks, no lefties. That's the gift for you on a Sunday, and how good are these two? Now, occasionally a little disagreement. Last week was a little peppery. Let's see what condiment has been brought to the discussion this evening. None other than James Ashby, as I say, running for One Nation in the seat of Keppel. And run, Nicole Flynn, former Liberal MP, looking $1 million, as always, in South Australia. Now, what about how stupid the government think people are. That this ute tax, and it's taking off, that people are understanding that the government wants to get in and decide what car you want to buy or not. And currently people are buying utes and SUVs, right? Oh no, but it's about saving fuel standards, and if we do it, you'll save $1,000. But now that's just $1,800. Just numbers being pulled out of you-know-where, Nicole, and they think people are stupid enough because Dunkley, they were able to give a $14 a week tax cut, and that fixed everything.
Well, look, and this sounds very similar to the $275 everyone was supposed to save on their power bill, Paul. So I predict that this will not be delivered, just like the $275 savings on power bills was not delivered as well. But it's not just the reduction of choice that we will see, the increase of costs for your normal four-wheel drives, for your utes and things that's going to hit tradies, farmers, grain nomads, anyone living in rural and regional areas. It's also the productivity cost to taxpayers of sitting around waiting for these electric vehicles to charge, the cost to taxpayers of putting in new charging points across this very large nation. Who on earth is going to pay for that, Paul? We're going to pay for this. Taxpayers will pay for this either directly or indirectly in every single way. It is an appallingly bad policy, but what else do we expect from Chris Bowen, quite frankly?
Well, also, the charging station things becomes kind of chicken and egg, right? Oh, there's no people aren't buying EVs because there's not enough charging stations. Okay, then we'll build lots of charging stations. That's because EVs are going up. Circular logic that means we keep doing the same thing over and over again, which I think is the definition of insanity. But anyway, James, give me an idea. Okay, you're running for state parliament, but you're very across federal parliament.
Yep.
Is it catching on, or is it just one of those things we're talking about amongst ourselves?
Chris Bowen has to be one of the only ministers who has failed upwards. He's done it since the mid-90s when he was in council, and he's done it when he was minister. Yeah, I know, but look, the Labor have a habit of this. But Chris Bowen here has frightened the bejesus out of people ever since Labor came to government. And I remember last year, Paul, Toyota, I've got a brand new 79 series Land Cruiser, and I only did that because I feared that Toyota were going to get rid of the V8 in that model. Because they're all trying to meet these emissions targets. So what did people do? The Toyota dealership here, the very last day they were taking orders, sold 200 of these on back order. 200 in Yeppoon alone.
Wow.
So people want their bigger vehicles. They want their V8s. They want their V6s. Now, I use it to go up the beach, and I go, obviously, hauling the caravan out when we go gold detecting. But the issue is, Chris Bowen has no understanding of what people are going through. Very few people can afford a brand new car right now with the way that interest rates are. They're not getting any better. I spent a couple of days at Mario Servo over the weekend here at Roslyn Bay. Mate, I can tell you there are people coming in there now that were putting in $4 of petrol in their car. They've got no spare cash. Between rent increases, everything else that's going on, this bloke's dreaming. Nicole, I couldn't fault you before. I love you this week. You're on point. So, look.
Peace and out, Tom.
The point of this is, Chris Bowen's dreaming.
Yeah. But also, look, and you know how focused I am on talking constantly about cost of living because, as you all know, it's what matters, right? And again, I don't care if they win the next election and every seat, they could win every seat in the parliament, right? If you're not there and actually trying to change people's circumstances, Nicole, then what the heck is the point of being there? Now, we know, of course, for a certain class of people, it's just to be there. It's just to say we're helping in order to stay in power. Which is why I think the petrol tax thing really should be front and centre. I think it's the only thing I want to hear about the Liberal Party banging away every single day. And I know there's lots of other things, nuclear, all around. Petrol tax, petrol tax, petrol tax. Because if people are literally writing to Senate committees saying, I can't leave the freaking house because of the cost of petrol, guess what probably people need to start rallying around as a demand out of this government?
Well, exactly, Paul. And we froze the we froze the exercise when we were in government. It can be done, and really, it should be cut. You've just said, we do have a lot of people. Unfortunately, we do have a few seat warmers in parliaments all around the place. But let's get real about some proper tax reform because excise is out of control. I know that alcohol, beer is more of a luxury item, really, but this is the sort of stuff that people shouldn't have to be worrying about or thinking, can I afford to go to the pub and have a beer? Can I afford to actually fill my car up? You know, as James has just said, it's a pretty terrifying and distressing situation to be in if you're just turning up to put $4 of fuel in your car because you literally don't have enough money to spend any more on it. So we need to get real again about some proper tax reform in this nation, which we haven't seen since John Howard.
No, 100%. And look, I just think whoever's the first to actually get their arms around this, they're going to connect in a certain way. Whether you're loud enough to move the needle, we'll all wait and see. Now, I want to ask you guys for a little wild prediction here about whether you think Labor will run in the seat of Cook. Now, I think they will because those are preferences that will help the Teals. Now, the Teals don't have a candidate, but their big financial backer has said, is there one out there? Which we know will eventually, echo through the ABC and such. So just simply, do you think Labor runs, or because there's no chance of winning the seat, they don't get involved at all? Because the PM seemed to make it clear that the pre-selection of a bloke was a bad thing. So, you know, the teal dog whistle went out, or dare I say, the chihuahua whistle went out, the puppy whistle went out. And it's all basically who goes first, the people who give you the preferences or the Teals. What do you think, James?
Well, the coalition's had a pretty good run over the last couple of terms. Scott Morrison was obviously a strong member for that area of Cook. He romped it in with 55% of the primary vote at the last election. Labor got somewhere around about 25%, the Greens under 10%. It's not possible for a Teal to even get up in a blue ribbon seat like the Shire, like Cook. That's what we're talking about. Unless they run the Bra Boys.
It's slightly further up, but yes, I get the point that you're making. Again, Nicole, Lib's got that seat, 55% primary vote. The logic of Teal Labor would be if we can get it to 49% and nobody preferences the Libs, everyone else preferences us, we can get them. Do you think Labor gets involved? Again, I'm not trying to give free advice to these people. I'm just trying to say, hey, don't count things because there are ways that the chicken and egg and hatching and stuff can go wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that they want to test their vote again, do they? They've just survived Dunkley, and I also think, they're going to have, given the result in Dunkley, they've got a lot of challenges on their hand around the nation in terms of other seats that they're going to need to fund. So I don't think that they'll probably waste their time and their money on running a campaign in Cook, because the Dunkley result says Labor needs to be focusing on all of their marginal seats very, very closely.
Yeah, that's true. Remember, of course, if that swing was uniform, and we know it's all a little different everywhere else, but basically a dozen Labor MPs would have lost their seats, which pushes them into deep minority, but still quite an issue. Now, let's go to the lighter end of things. Tomorrow, the Oscars, and I know everyone's going to be sitting around leaning in. Oh, what jokes will they tell about Trump? Oppenheimer's going to absolutely kick ass, and as well it probably should. It was one of the best films of last year. Most interestingly, like $1 billion at the box office, so people actually saw the best picture this year, as opposed to... Remember when the Oscar went to a movie called The Shape of Water, and I'm not joking, it's about a Sheila falling in love with a fish. Like, nobody saw that movie, but that was Best Picture. At least $1 billion. People actually went and saw this movie. So, if you had a vote, would you be giving it over, James, to Oppenheimer, or is there a nice little classic up the back of the DVD collection that you think people should go and check out?
Mate, I still haven't seen that movie yet. I'm not one that goes to the cinemas too much.
It is 8 hours long. Fairness.
Is it? Oh, right. Equaliser 3, I'd say. That's more my style.
That was good. And you know what? If you haven't seen Equaliser 3, right, like I love one of those shoot 'em up things. It was Denzel Washington. But unlike most of those movies, he actually, for want of a better term, earns his kills, because like the first hour is really slow, but it shows him falling in love with the locals, all the rest. So when the bad guys come in, so when the revenge kicks in, chef's kiss. Nicole?
Look, I haven't seen Oppenheimer either, sorry, but my absolute best film of 2023 was Sound of Freedom, and if everyone watching at home hasn't seen it, please do. It was an independent production. It's all about conservative values, and it has a really important message about the terrible behaviour that's still going on worldwide. It's a distressing film. It's about child sex trafficking. But goodness me, talking about issues that need to be solved in the world, this is one of them. It's a beautiful film. It was essentially self-funded. They had to crowdfund it because none of the major studios would touch it. So I would just encourage everyone to support them. You can watch it online.
Yeah, it too made an awful lot of money. A lot of people saw it too. And it would be, imagine the opportunity of the people who made that film to stand in front of that audience and rather than telling us all the normal lefty stuff, actually talking about something where right now there's a TV on somewhere watching this ceremony and there is someone being treated horribly in the home where this TV is on right now. I agree with you. Forget all that garbage you see from the internet. Oh, it's QAnon adjacent. Please, rubbish. James, a bold prediction for the week ahead, please, my friend.
Pauline Hanson's going to launch a new vodka this week. It's a Rosella vodka, and it's been made in Yeppoon from Reef Distilleries. But
I was going to say, you haven't been making it in the bath, have you?
No.
Right, good. Just check.
No, in the shed, mate.
Right, proper distillery, good.
No, proper distillery. I would suggest this week we're going to see a change. Ipswich West could very much change hands. Labor might lose that seat. Good luck to Mark Bone, One Nation's candidate, but let's see where this goes.
Look, if you have any opportunity to be in that by-election, the chance to send a message to that idiot Miles, I noticed they pulled out Queen Palaszczuk the past couple of days, send them a message. Do it for certainly a message about youth crime, which we all know is horrific in that area, and many other places in Queensland. Nicole, what's definitely happening this week?
Well, I think maybe James might be nice to Peter Dunn again this week. I'm shocked that we've gotten through a session without James attacking our wonderful leader. I think you must be, One Nation must be feeling the pressure because Dutz is doing such a good job and he's a wonderful man. Seriously though, Paul, my bold prediction is that we will probably see yet another tax announced by Labor this week because we've just been talking about the car tax that they're going to be implementing. They've also... Tanya Plibersek is threatening to put a clothing climate tax in place as well. Oh. So it's not just the car climate tax. She wants to put in a clothing climate tax. And retailers like Kmart are saying, no, our customers can't afford this. We cannot pass this on to our customers during a cost of living crisis. So, let's just keep an eye out for whatever's next because they keep thinking up new taxes and sneaking them in.
It'd be fascinating to see if the local op shop needs to as well in her electorate, because I'm pretty sure none of those are going to be environmentally friendly clothes from the 80s and 90s. Certainly, anyway, what she may well have worn to the disco way back when. Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it. We'll see you again next week. Andrew Bogut standing by. Let's talk to him about a whole bunch of things, including, the Sam Kerr thing, right? Action, reaction. Doesn't need to go to court. Maybe not be the Australian captain for one game. What does he think? Howdy, the Rogues Bogues podcast, not just about sport, a lot of bit of just general blokes, freedom, fun. And of course, its host is Andrew Bogut, legendary basketball player, businessman, all-round Australian, trophy owner. You can look at him behind him there. Now, are those trophies from the professional career or way back when?
Oh, the mixed bag, college, pro. Yeah, just a few of them back there. So it's a good Zoom background.
Yeah, very good, very good. It beats the damn books. Everyone sitting in front of the books they've never read. He's earned every one of those trophies. All right. So, Sam Kerr, I did a whole thing at the start of the show talking about particularly the Craig Foster thing. So Craig Foster's running around the place, racism not welcome, his street signs everywhere. He doesn't say she's racist. He instead sort of goes, look, you're the Australian soccer captain, probably not a great look. Left goes crazy. He puts out 2-page apology for having the same comment that we would about any professional sports person, wouldn't we?
Oh, mate, the amount of pivoting, it's gone from racism is never okay to, it's kind of okay. Oh, that wasn't that racist. What are the origins? Well, Paul, do you know the origins of the words slave by any chance?
No, I don't. I don't actually. Where'd it come from?
It derives from Slavic, which happens to be my background. So... go figure. But people that only think world history existed for 150 years wouldn't know that. But it just boggles my mind, the hypocrisy of these people. To me, you make fun of, discriminate, or treat someone differently because of their skin color or their race or their background or their religion. That's what the word's for.
But isn't the whole point, right? The whole point of people of our vintage, and certainly everyone watching right now, is that part of being, for want of a better term, post-racial, or at least being aware to racial sensitivity, is that you don't insert any word of any colour on the spectrum before the other word you probably shouldn't use at all. But that's the point. If you want, as soon as you add a description of someone, apart from about their character, then fairly obviously that's the area that's considered racism. But I love the idea that basically it's the left now that's, I'm not racist, but...
It's just insane. It's just a complete pivot to what we've been thrown down our throats for the last 4 or 5 years. Look, I think the English laws are crazy in itself. I think it's absolutely insane what they're doing over there with freedom of speech. I'm an absolutist, and you know, I've copped racism in my time. I've copped, you know, the W word throughout my childhood. My father copped it even worse, but we got on with life. You know, we battled through. But one thing I'll say about Sam Kerr is the only issue I have is why I've called this out is because you were kneeling. You were part of the BLM rallies. Yeah. You wore the armband, say no to racism. You were preaching to the masses about how they should live their lives and not be racist. Well, you know, even if it's an iota to the left, or some people are saying it's just a small bit of racism, you're a hypocrite. I'm not listening to anything you say about any social issues from you ever again.
Yep, fair call. Also, but I just love the slew of experts who basically have said you can't be racist to white people, right? It is impossible, as you say. History only started, 150, 200 years ago. Nothing happened before. Nothing happened before.
Let me give you a tip, Paul. This might shock your viewers. White people have been oppressed historically as well. You know, prime example, like, there was a war in the Balkans in the 90s. Do some research, people.
Misinformation, ban it from the internet. Misinformation. All right, now you know how it goes. Let's talk about the NBA. Ben Simmons. All right, he's injured. He has basically played 4/5 of bugger all this season, but gets all the cash. Is that okay?
That's the league. I mean, that's why when I was in the league, I was hurt a fair bit, and I still made sure that check was cashing in the bank account every 2 weeks. Look, it's a fully guaranteed league. You sign a 5-year deal, you're fully guaranteed, meaning hurt yourself on the court, walk outside, get hit by a bus, that money's going into your account for that 5 years. Is that good? Is it bad? That's a separate debate. You just feel for Ben. You know, he just can't seem to get healthy. I think it's that same back issue with his nerve impingement, and he's obviously had other issues along the way now, so everyone's kind of throwing the kitchen sink at him and going at him, and you just hope he finds health. I hate to see any player, good or bad, go through injury mishaps like he has.
So give me an idea. I mean, I understand why from the player's perspective, right? You do nothing wrong, something happens in round one, game one, knocks you out for a whole season, right? You still need to be able to pay the rent. But, I mean, again, you don't play for the money, you play to win the game, to win the conference, to win a championship, right? Has the pendulum at all swung too far that you should be playing X% of a season to get a full amount? Like there's the turn-up fee and then there's the game fee on top of it.
Well, I think football has something similar, and that's a much more physical sport. Look, it's definitely debatable, I think, but you know, the issue is if you suffer a horrendous injury that then affects future earnings, that's where the issue lies. That's why they guarantee it, because you know, if you're a top-tier player, someone takes your legs out, you go down, your next contract's going to be half of what you were because your form's not the same. I kind of went through somewhat a similar kind of path. I did my elbow really bad. My offense wasn't as good as it was. I lost a lot of money probably in the course of my career because of that. But that's just the way it goes. So, but look, the NBA is not losing money by paying guaranteed contracts. I can tell you that. There's a lot of money. It's one of the most prosperous leagues in the world. And if they thought this was an issue, they would address it. But I think the guarantee thing, as a player, I think it's good. The money being thrown around these days, max contracts $40-50 million a year, that's probably gone a bit too far on the pendulum.
Just desperately trying to work out how I can get this into my next deal. My people, your people, we'll work it out. Thank you, Andrew.
No worries, thanks.
See, how good is he? Andrew Bogan, every couple of weeks here on Paul Murray Live, the only place you'll see him on the telly. We love him. We love his straightforward opinions. If you would like to listen to him, it is the Rogues Bogues podcast. Quick break, back with more. The Royal Report exactly 4 minutes from now. Always love being able to get to the beaches, and we should be doing so with our next Our Town. The northern beaches of Sydney is where we're going to be going, specifically to Balgowlah. This is a beautiful part of Australia. Beautiful Billy Beach, not too far from there. Shout out to Steve and all of the good people of the surf club there. Send us an email, ourtown@skynews.com.au, ourtown@skynews.com.au, if you'd like to join us on the northern beaches of Sydney for our next Our Town. Here's the Royal Report.